Hey everybody, here's your 6.5 Math Excel video. It's a little bit longer than 6.4, but some of them are very fast. There's a couple that are not, but for the most part it's not that bad once you get the hang of it. The first one is x equals square root of 2x minus 14 plus 7. So the first thing we do is we solve for the square root symbol term, so we bring the 7 over. So we have x minus 7 equal the square root of 2x minus 14. By doing this, you can now square both sides. Now this is where you're going to need to remember FOIL. Basically, if you have a minus b squared, that's the same as a minus b times a minus b, and do FOIL. First times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, last times last. Or you could square the first one, double the middle, so negative 7x doubled is negative 14x. So we can write it this way: a minus b squared equal a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Because then you do negative 7 squared, and make sure you do parentheses around it if you're using your calculator, because you always need a positive when you're squaring a negative number. And then the whole point of that was to cancel out the square root and the squared, so you just have what was underneath. Now from there, you got to move your terms around and solve like we did on chapter 5. We want to subtract 2x, and so there was no x squared term over here, so we just dropped it. And then negative 14 minus 2 is negative 16. And then you bring your 14 over, so 49 plus 14 is 63. When you do these on this lesson, they should all be factorable, I believe, unless you made a mistake. And if you didn't want to factor, you could have used the quadratic formula or completing the square or graphing. So in this one, we have a positive 63, so both terms have to either both be positive or both negative. And since the middle term is negative, then both of these have to be negative. So basically I have to do x minus 9, x minus 7 to get me what I want. So that means x equals 9 and x equals 7. Now at that point, we don't know if both of them are answers or just one of them until we do the check. So you see where x is up here? I plug in 9 for it there, and where it says 2 times 9, then minus 14 plus 7, and work that out. So 2 times 9 is 18, 18 minus 14 is 4, the square root of 4 is 2, and then you go 2 plus 7 is 9, it worked. And then you do the same thing for the 7. 7 equal the square root, 2 times 7 minus 14 plus 7. So when you do the square root of 14 minus 14, that's 0, and so you get 7 equals 7, so it worked. So those are your two answers. On the next one, we have the square root of 10y plus 6 minus the square root of 9y plus 12 equals 0. The first thing to do is move this over so they're on separate sides, and then you could square it. And so once you square it, then you just get rid of your square root sign, and this turns into like a really easy problem. Up here it doesn't look easy, but here it does, because you subtract 9y and you just get y plus 6 equals 12, so then y is 6. And there's the check, and for me it worked. Now this one, number 3, is probably the longest question out of all of them. You have the square root of 4y plus 12 minus the square root of y minus 6 equals 6. So this one, we bring our square root over. We basically solve for the more complicated one, and so we bring that other one over and then square both. and so that's 4y plus 12, and then you have your square root of y minus 6, then plus 6 squared. So this is a little weird right there. What you do is your first term squared, which basically drops your square root sign, and then if you think 6 in front of it, then it turns into 12 because you double it, because you do your 2ab like we did earlier. So 12 square root of y minus 6 plus, then you do 6 squared, which is 36. And so then you work it out, y, and then minus 6 plus 36 is 30. Then move these terms over, so you get 3y minus 18 equal 12 square root of y minus 6. Then at that point, you could factor out your 3, but that's not really going to help anything. We would need to square this, and so 12 squared is 144, and squaring the square root of y minus 6 is just y minus 6. So then this is why it takes a little bit longer, because you've got bigger numbers to work with. And you've got to do 3y quantity squared, which is really 9y squared. Then minus 2 times 3 times 18 is 54. So 54y plus 18 squared is 324. And then here you distribute. There is a lot of math on this one. And it's here. So here you distribute and get negative 864. Then you bring these two terms over and then combine your like terms, factor out a 9, and then I'm finally to something I could actually work with, which is y squared minus 28y plus 132 equals 0. Then you want to factor that or use another method like graphing, and you get 6 and 22. And when I did my check, they both worked out. So I'll show you another method in a moment that's pretty long to do it this way. But that's one of the harder questions. Okay, so on this one we have the square root of 3y plus 4 minus 3 equal 5. You add 3 to get 8, square both to get 64. 64 minus 4 is 60, divide by 3 is 20, and there's the check, which worked. Okay, so let me show you all on this one. Since it's a little bit easier, you can graph it. And you could do this on all of them as long as you use the right variable. Now here it says 3y plus 4, but I need to say 3x. So add graph the square root 3x plus 4 minus 3. That's my function 1 because it's my left side. And then I want to do down arrow, and then I do my right side as F2. So then you can see the 5 line and you can see the square root function. Looks like we're going to have to move this over a bit. And so when we do that, we see our intersection and we get 20 comma 5, and so you just get 20 for your answer. Now notice here it shows x is 20 because that's what we wanted, but in the problem we used y, so y was 20. So again, don't confuse yourself on that. Okay, on your next one it says, now the next several are very fast. You can find the area A of a square using A equal S squared. What's the best estimate for 27 meters squared? Well, you put 27 for A, so 27 equal S squared. Take the square root. Now, you could do this on your calculator, but it's really not needed because the square root of 25 is 5. And square root of 27 would then be bigger than 5. But if you need to use your calculator, go to the calculate screen, square root 27, and then do Control Enter. 5.196, so there's your 5.2. That's a multiple choice, should be easy from just estimating. The next one wants you to solve for a variable. It says the velocity of an object rolled down an inclined plane is v equal the square root of 61d. It wants you to solve for d. Since it's under the square root sign, you square both, so it's v squared, and then you just divide by that number, and so that's real simple. V squared over 61 equal d. Okay, on your next one, it just wants to know what is greater, square root of 13 or square root of 2 plus 2. So when I thought about square root of 13, kind of like number sense, square root of 9 would be 3, square root of 16 would be 4, and so square root of 13 would be somewhere between there. And square root of 2 is about 1.4. 1.4 plus 2 is 3.4. At that point, I didn't know which one is bigger, so I used my calculator, and square root of 13 is 3.6, and so that's bigger. So the next one, we have the square root of x plus 72 equal x. Square both sides and then move everything over. You always want to keep your x squared term where it is if it's already positive, so you bring your others over. So here you have x squared minus x minus 72, and again from multiplying you know 9 times 8 is 72. Now pay attention to this part. It was a negative 72, so one of them had to be positive and the other negative. And also on top of that, it's a negative x, so that meant the bigger number, which was 9, had to be negative. So you needed x minus 9 and x plus 8. And then you just flip your signs, so x is 9 and or x is negative 8. Then do your check. Now on this one, the square root of 9 plus 72 is square root of 81, which is 9. But square root of negative 8 plus 72 cannot be a negative number. So this is like the square root of 64 is negative 8, and you got to say that's wrong. So only 9. Now these extra practice ones are pretty quick also. You have the square root of 6 minus x equals 6. Square both, so it turns into 36. And you just have the part underneath the square root symbol. Then you want to bring your x to become positive and move your 36 over, so 6 minus 36 is negative 30. On the next one, square root of 2x minus 3 equal 3, square both to get 9. Remember 3 squared is 9, it's not 6. Then you want to add 3 to both sides to get 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then do your check, and it should work out. So on the next one, square root of 5a plus 1 equal 9. So square both to get 5a plus 1 equal 81, because 9 times 9 is 81. Remember again, you'll do these faster if you know your perfect squares and multiplying. Then you want to subtract 1 to get 80. 80 divided by 5 would be 16. Then plug it in, and square root of 81 was 9. Okay. On the next one, extra practice D. The square root of 5x plus 6 minus 4 equals 0, so you bring your 4 to here. Then you square both, so you get 16. Then you subtract 6 and divide, and you get 2. And then you do your check. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4, and 4 minus 4 really is 0. So it worked. And then square root of 3x minus 2 minus 4 equals 0. So again, bring your 4 over, square both, add 2 to both sides to get 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And then plug it in and it works. One more time I'm going to show you all about graphing. So if you did the square root 3x minus 2 minus 4, and then the right side is 0, so I put f2 as 0, then you want that intersection. So analyze graph, intersect between here and here is the ordered pair 6, 0, and so you want 6 for your answer. Now, if you know f2 is really 0, let me just demonstrate this one. If you know f2 is really 0, then you don't have to type it. Go square root 5x plus 6 minus 4, enter, and just do the 0 of the graph because that's the x-intercept. So that way it'll save you some keystrokes. You move this, you get 2, 0, and so 2 was your answer. Okay. Then for our last one, we have extra practice F. The square root of x squared plus 5 equal x plus 1. You want to square both sides, so I put the little 2 there. Now when we do that, you square x, so that's x squared. You multiply 1 times x is x, and then you double it, so that's how you get 2x, plus 1 squared is 1. Now, this is how this one works out. Since you have x squared on the left and on the right, they cancel. And so you just have 5 equal 2x plus 1, and then it turns into something really easy. Subtract 1 from both sides to get 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then there's the check. 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 5 is 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. And on the right side, 2 plus 1 is 3. So it worked. Okay, hope that helped.